The movie begins with college student Matthew attending a party at a women's dormitory. While in the elevator, he kindly assists a girl carrying her laundry by pressing the button for her. Suddenly, the power goes out, but Matthew remains undeterred. He engages in a lively conversation with the girl and shares an intimate moment with her. Unfortunately, Matthew doesn't catch a good glimpse of her face, and she disappears by morning. This encounter fuels Matthew's determination to locate the enigmatic girl. However, Matthew's friend Rod fails to comprehend his eagerness to find the elevator girl and offers no support. Matthew explains that he has never had much luck with women before, recounting embarrassing moments he's had in their presence. Despite Matthew's explanation, Rod pays little attention and diverts the conversation to unrelated topics, such as enhancing his masculinity. The situation takes a turn when Matthew shows Rod the girl's underwear, and he unabashedly grabs and smells the underwear. Matthew retrieves it, dismisses Rod, and focuses on his homework while Rod watches television. Later on, Matthew discusses his plan with Rod to gain access to the women's dormitory. He devises a scheme involving tossing a bag of mice through the dormitory window, posing as a maintenance worker to enter the building. Once inside, Matthew searches for the matching undergarment to the one he found. Unfortunately, he comes up empty and decides to call it quits for the day. However, Matthew witnesses Crick mistreating his girlfriend, Patty. Despite feeling scared, Matthew steps in and confronts Crick, even though he knows he cannot match Crick's physical strength. Matthew insults Crick and defends Patty, willingly enduring Crick's potential retaliation rather than allowing Patty to be harmed. In the ensuing scuffle, Matthew pinches Crick's chest, causing him pain, but Crick retaliates and inflicts similar pain on Matthew. They continue to harm each other until Matthew surrenders. Crick warns Matthew that he will seek revenge and threatens Patty as well. Once Crick departs, Patty provides Matthew with some meadow, a substance that alleviates his pain. Concerned about Matthew's bruises, Patty uses a cold can of beer as a makeshift ice pack to prevent further worsening. In this vulnerable moment, Matthew confesses that he recognizes Patty and cannot help but admire her beauty. Meanwhile, Patty attempts to initiate a more intimate connection with Matthew, but he suddenly feels uneasy and restrains himself. Confused, Patty suggests that Matthew may be worried about the rumors surrounding her. However, Matthew assures Patty that is not the case at all. He even expresses his willingness to explore new experiences. To ease the tension, Matthew begins playing with small balls on the nightstand, mistakenly assuming their purpose. Unfortunately, Patty embarrasses him by revealing their actual use, prompting Matthew to hurriedly depart. Later, Matthew discusses his plan with Rod, stating that he will continue pretending to be a maintenance worker until he locates the mystery girl. He intends to create daily inconveniences between classes and homework, hoping that the women in the dormitory will grant him entry. However, Matthew encounters obstacles, particularly when faced with intimidating girls who require his assistance. On one occasion, he aids Cynthia, an attractive girl with a restroom issue in the dormitory. Despite Matthew's stuttering, Cynthia chooses to overlook it. He also fixes her television, leading to an invitation from Arlene to play foosball. During the foosball game, the loser must remove an article of clothing, resulting in Matthew gradually undressing. Eventually, Matthew loses and the girls help him remove his shorts. Fortunately, the size of his masculinity impresses them, and Matthew confidently departs after his game with Arlene. Matthew informs Rod about losing to a girl, prompting a conversation about female body parts and their seductive power. However, Rod becomes uncomfortable and asks Matthew to stop, finding the discussion unsettling. The next day, Matthew tampers with the air conditioning system in the dormitory, causing it to become unbearably hot. Consequently, the girls are compelled to remove their clothes. Rod and Matthew observe the situation from their room, yet Matthew remains clueless about the identity of his mystery girl. Matthew proceeds to describe the distinct personalities of each girl in the dormitory, mentioning their names individually. One Saturday morning, Matthew becomes careless and mistakenly uses one of the young ladies' bathrooms. While washing his hands, he forgets to put the toilet seat down. The girl quickly notices and wipes the sink, retaliating by using hairspray on Matthew's face. Recognizing Matthew, she introduces herself as Wendy and reveals that they were once classmates. Wendy helps alleviate the stinging sensation in Matthew's eyes and listens to his quest of finding the mystery girl. Sympathetic, Wendy offers to assist Matthew by being his lookout whenever he needs to enter a girl's room. Eventually, Matthew finds a match and eagerly awaits the arrival of the girl who may be the one. However, his excitement turns into disappointment when she communicates using sign language. It turns out that the young girl Matthew was searching for cannot speak, which means she is not the person he was looking for. This realization makes Matthew feel sad and sulky. On the other hand, his friend Rod reminds him that women often bring trouble. Rod goes on to explain why they shouldn't waste their time on girls, leaving Matthew curious about what happened to his friend to make him dislike women. Rod then asks Matthew about his advertisement. Matthew explains that he is feeling hopeless, and the ad is the only way he can think of to find the mystery girl faster. The ad states that Matthew will wait for the girl every Thursday night in the basement of their dormitory. However, Rod only mocks him for it. Sadly, Matthew has already spent several Thursdays waiting in the dark, but the girl still hasn't shown up. Later, Wendy arrives in the basement and tries to cheer Matthew up by offering him something to eat. As Wendy prepares their food, Matthew starts to wonder what kind of wife the mystery girl will be in the future. They eventually eat together and Wendy shares a sad story about her father. After dinner, Wendy dresses Matthew up as a girl named Franchesca and instructs him to pretend to be her in order to gather information from the girls in the dormitory. Their plan is to find out if any of the girls had a steamy session in the elevator during a blackout. Unfortunately, none of the girls admit to it and their plan fails. Wendy suggests that Matthew should try to get to know the girls better and see if he can sense any connection with the mystery girl. Desperate for options, Matthew starts talking to all the girls to figure out who she might be. Unfortunately, Matthew struggles to communicate with Cynthia, so he talks to her as Franchesca instead. Through their conversation, he realizes that Cynthia is more complex than he initially thought. Later that night, Matthew has a conversation with a quiet girl named Dora. She believes that Matthew is only talking to her out of pity. The next day, Matthew is challenged by a girl named Arlene to a game of foosball. While playing, they discuss the challenges of being a man and a woman. Arlene ends up losing and accuses Matthew of cheating. Matthew points out that they didn't establish any rules, causing Arlene to leave with a clear dislike for him. In his women's studies class, Matthew discusses the perception of fairness between men and women. He argues that there are no clear rules in their interactions, but his teacher, Miss Stern, disagrees. She states that women understand the rules imposed by the patriarchy of Western civilization. Matthew is unable to respond to her argument. After their midterms, Matthew checks on the girl who hasn't come out of her room. He then realizes that Dora is missing from her usual spot and finds her on the rooftop. Worried, Matthew rushes to her and accidentally causes a couch to fall and hit Cynthia on the rooftop. Matthew manages to convince Dora not to jump, but she expresses her feelings of ugliness and lack of passion. Eventually, Dora admits that she never planned to jump, and Matthew persuades her to go back inside. They read a book together, and Matthew finds himself enjoying their time together. One night, Matthew discusses the downsides of being Franchesca with Wendy. He reveals that Rod didn't recognize him and was looking at him inappropriately. Matthew admits feeling violated, and Wendy empathizes with him, sharing her own experiences. Matthew is shocked to discover that Rod was willing to engage in inappropriate behavior with him while he was dressed as Franchesca. Reflecting on this, Matthew realizes that women are more responsible than men. He believes that women actually rule the world, although they are not often recognized in positions of power. Matthew suggests that men are afraid of empowering women in the workplace because they understand that women will eventually rise to their rightful positions of authority. Days later, Matthew sits with Patty and shares a bowl of cereal. Patty reveals that she is aware that Matthew has feelings for someone based on the way he looks at her. Unfortunately, Crick interrupts their moment. Matthew finds a way to distract Crick and keep him away from Patty. This angers Crick and he pushes Matthew away. Patty intervenes and Matthew helps her take Crick down before escaping. As a result, Crick is forced to cut his hair and begins searching for Patty. However, Patty accidentally drops her small ball, which catches the attention of Crick. Soon after, after, Patty's other ball falls, causing Crick to slip and fall down the stairs unexpectedly. Meanwhile, Matthew ends up sleeping with Patty, and they accidentally knock over a small bottle of paint, creating a mess. The next morning, Matthew feels guilty for using Patty and worries that his secret will be exposed to his mystery girl. However, Rod dismisses Matthew's concerns and starts lecturing about how to treat girls, which leads Matthew to question why Rod harbors so much animosity towards women. Rod avoids answering the question and changes the subject by bragging about sleeping with a girl named Franchesca, which angers Matthew because he knows Rod is lying. In response, Matthew places a heavy object on Rod's manhood stretcher as a form of retribution. Despite several weeks passing, Matthew still has no clue about the identity of the girl he met in the elevator. Suddenly, the girl appears in the basement, telling Matthew to stop searching for her and expressing her dislike for him. Unfortunately, due to the darkness, Matthew is unable to see her face clearly and tries to follow her when she leaves. However, he loses her again and ends up feeling defeated, resulting in him visiting Wendy and feeling down. Feeling sad, Matthew confides in Wendy, suggesting that his mystery girl may have a boyfriend or was simply intoxicated during their elevator encounter. He also opens up about his low self-esteem, attributing it to his mother's influence. Wendy becomes frustrated with parents trying to shape their children into something they don't want to be, leading to her breaking a framed photograph of her mother and engaging in a pillow fight with Matthew. The following day, Wendy's mom discovers her sleeping with Matthew amidst a pile of feathers. Despite his continued efforts, Matthew senses time is running out as the school year nears its end. He reconciles with Arlene and teams up with her in a game of foosball, successfully defeating Crick and his friend. Matthew decides to make a video of Dora, highlighting her beauty. Additionally, he plans to pretend to be a maintenance worker and fix the broken window of the girls' dormitory. However, before he can carry out his plan, he encounters Cynthia with a bruised face caused by a falling couch. Matthew spends time with Cynthia, sympathizing with her situation and discussing the book she's reading. However, Cynthia becomes angry and kicks the wall, resulting in a hole. On another occasion, Matthew hangs out with Patty, pretending to be Franchesca because he doesn't know what to say to her as himself. He asks Patty if she likes the maintenance guy, but she reveals that she doesn't. Their conversation gets interrupted by Crick, who continues to bother Patty. Matthew intervenes, allowing Patty to escape, but Crick shifts his attention to Matthew instead. Mistaking Matthew for a lady, Crick attempts to kiss him, prompting Matthew to bite off his tongue in self-defense. Ashamed, Matthew keeps the incident to himself. He later discovers Rod enjoying Dora's video, but is surprised when he sees a revealing image of Rod. Rod explains his condition and how it led to him being humiliated in front of a girl, asking Matthew to keep it a secret. Matthew realizes that this is why Rod harbors resentment towards women and decides to support and uplift his friend instead of making fun of him. As the deadline approaches, Matthew gathers the courage to confess in front of 100 girls in the ladies' dormitory that he is searching for the mystery lady he met in the elevator. He pours his heart out, but all the girls claim to be the one he's looking for. However, Matthew realizes that the true mystery girl is the one who hasn't left her room. He rushes to her door, only to be told that she is not his girl, but she suggests that the girl he's looking for may be a few doors down. With little time left, Matthew knocks on Patty's door and tells her that he now knows she is his mystery girl. Unfortunately, Patty rejects him, revealing that he has fallen in love with another girl from the elevator. Patty confesses that she tried to make Matthew fall in love with her, but he is fixated on the other girl. Sadly, Matthew accepts that he cannot be with Patty, even though he desires to. Eventually, he tries to come to terms with this reality. Meanwhile, the other girls move on with their lives, and Cynthia discovers her talent for martial arts. Matthew finally musters the courage to express his thoughts in Miss Stern's class, highlighting the issue of numerous groups fighting against each other instead of seeking understanding. His classmates applaud him, and the teacher remains silent. On the other hand, Crick's ability to speak properly is compromised due to his injured tongue. Matthew threatens to involve the authorities regarding Crick's actions when he was disguised as Franchesca, which leads other victims to come forward as well. Later, Wendy confides in Matthew about her attraction to girls, and Arlene becomes her girlfriend. Simultaneously, Matthew orchestrates a situation where Rod and Dora are trapped in the elevator, and they have been together ever since. Following these events, Matthew decides to visit Patty and treats her like a precious gift he has long awaited. The movie comes to a close as we see the two share a passionate kiss. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.